to nurture football talent with state-of-the-art facilities. These developments present huge potential for further collaboration between the region through sports. With quality health care facilities and professionals available in the state, medical tourism in Manipur is another area which must be further strengthened. When the air ambulance service is introduced, it will give a boost to this sector. Manipur can also serve as a land gateway for Myanmar to Buddhist sites in parts of Northeast region, like Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh and the Rumtek in Sikkim, and further into other parts of India like Bodh Gaya. Before I conclude, I would like to invite our entrepreneurs and the traders from the various parts of the ASEAN who gathered here today to come visit our land. Let us look forward towards a future which will unlock the full potential of the Northeast region by enhancing physical connectivity, facilitating people connect, and building enduring partnership within the region and with the ASEAN region. The government of Manipur believes our future lies in engaging actively to collectively create synergize and build mutually supportive relationship, transforming the lives of the people in our region and reshaping the geopolitical and economic landscape in the ASEAN century. We will continue to work steadfastly with this belief guiding us. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for that immersive, exhaustive vision of yours towards Manipur and India-ASEAN relations. May I request the chair, Patwari sir, to kindly felicitate Honorable Chief Minister with a token of appreciation on behalf of India Foundation, MEA, and the Government of Assam for gracing the occasion today, sir. Thank you so much. We request Honorable Chief Minister to kindly be seated with us in the front row. May I request Major General Dhruv Katoch to escort Honorable Chief Minister onto the first row. May I request the volunteers to supplement us with one more chair, as we have two speakers for the next session. Table. नहीं है। May I request the Honorable Ambassador of Vietnam to India, Mr. Pham San Chau, to join us on the dais, please. Thank you, sir. May I also request Mr. Sachin Chaturvedi, the Director General for Research and Information System for Developing Countries, to also join us on the stage. Over to the chair.
Now, Mr. Shashin Chaturvedi, he is the Director General, Research and Information System for Developing Countries. So now, I'd like to request Sri Chaturvedi to deliver his valuable speech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for giving a sort of overview right in the beginning, and with your address and the address that we heard from Honorable Chief Minister has set the context for discussion that I would try to take forward, and then the Ambassador would follow. The idea of connectivity, and particularly physical connectivity, has been adequately mentioned right in the inaugural session itself. I have tried to put a couple of slides together for you to see the specifics of the details, but let me help set the context when we talk about physical connectivity. With physical connectivity, the idea is not just in terms of establishing roads, infrastructure that is needed for us to move along. The idea is also in terms of how we move ahead with globalization. And as we heard in the inaugural session itself, deglobalization. So when we talk about globalization and when we talk about deglobalization, the counterfactuals are important. And I was going through the various delegations that have come today from all the ASEAN countries and participants from India. And I was quite impressed to see, and India Foundation should be congratulated for that, in terms of bringing people who have some interest in business and economy. And I'm very glad that Thinkers Forum or students who have business background, finance, economics, or issues that may be playing an important role in this very idea of globalization. So what we try to understand when we talk about globalization, and three factors are very important, and as a student of economics I can mention the three factors that are very important for us to understand when we talk about connectivity, and number one there is in terms of scale. So what happens when we are connected, when we have roads to connect, and as Honorable Chief Minister mentioned about Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland to be connected with Myanmar, Thailand and other ASEAN countries, even Laos, Cambodia were mentioned. What happens? We try to achieve scale of economies. So my first point is scale. So what happens is scale when we globalize. Now, in what direction scales move? Do we move in terms of economizing scale of production, or do we create disincentives for production? So that's where the question is extremely important. So what you are seeing in form of a Brexit, what you are seeing with what the 45th President of the United States is talking about, this all is because the scale of economies have not been addressed. So when India and ASEAN and two major economies are coming together, we need to see that how local livelihood security is ensured, how we see that local production is ensured, and that I think is absolutely important. So scale is number one, and that point I want to mention. The second point is about technology. What role technology can play? We see leaders here in terms of those who have excelled in information communication technology and those who are into nanotechnology. I did my PhD way back in 1989, and in my PhD I had picked up the Japanese theory of flying geese, and I applied it on Singapore. And I tried to see how Singapore, which was supposed to be a leader in information communication technology, lost out when the comparative advantage moved to Thailand, to Malaysia, and then we were expecting where these geese would fly further, and they ended up in India. So what should Singapore do? So 1998, when Singapore appointed Filipio as a leader, and I went and met him, and I was trying to understand how the new strategy would come up. and this was after 8 years of my PhD. I was trying to see what Singapore would do, and I found that Singapore found out a new way of retaining the technological control so that it doesn't go. And do you know what sector was that? It was biopharmaceutical. And Singapore, the target was in 1998 to have 7% growth in the manufacturing sector with biopharmaceuticals. And Singapore showed that. And till now, it is giving 11 to 12% manufacturing push in Singapore. And how Singapore did that? I wrote a paper on this and showed how Singapore focused on technology, and technologies more than that on people. So if our people are not prepared for technological change would not mean anything. It would come as foreign direct investment, it would go to more lucrative places where cost of production is less, and then it would disappear from the national scene, as happened in case of ICT with Singapore. But 1998, Singapore established, and now Singapore is one of the world's largest exporters of medical equipments and all biopharmaceutical sector. It's a huge turnover for Singapore, and almost all the major companies have their offices in Singapore. And what did Singapore do for addressing the skill? They invited Johns Hopkins University, they invited other universities, they invited scholars from other countries to be based in Singapore. And this gave a huge impetus to people. So my second point is about technology, but more than technology, the people. And third point, I would like to take you back to 1959, when France was losing its industrial growth to Germany and to UK. And what did France do? In France, there was an economist, and this economist came up with an idea in La Gracias in terms of how we come up with the idea of growth poles and growth zones. So that my third point is network. Network is important. So first point I said scale, second I said technology and people, and third I am telling you is about network, how you develop network. So what Honorable Chief Minister was mentioning in terms of medicinal plants, aromatic plant, network approach would help. And what ASEAN countries tried, and through the IMTGT, the Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand growth triangle. So this theory of growth triangle, growth quadrangle, growth corridor, and growth poles. So the whole concept is based on the very idea of having a network. So you need to have networks which are important, because technology can take you somewhere. Technology can give you a mobile, but others should also have a mobile so that you can talk to them. You alone having mobile would not help. So it is important that technology is diffused. Technology is going to people. And for that, what production you require, you need to have that network with you. And that network of companies, of institutions, it may be a network of academic institutions, it may be a network of individual researchers, it may be a network of private firms trying to do something and passing it on to other, what we call as global value chain or even regional value chains. So these three things are extremely important. I have some slides that I would quickly go through. I don't have a slide changer, so I would just tell you in next 5 minutes to quickly change over, and we would go through it. Next slide. If I can get a slide changer, I can myself do that. Otherwise, if somebody is doing, then I would have to give a signal. So next slide. Yeah. So what is the idea of a connectivity? And as I see connectivity, as Honorable Chief Minister very rightly said, it empowers youth. The first and foremost thing that connectivity can do is to empower youth. And how do we do that? It brings in the integration of internal economy, the point that I was trying to make. So if ASEAN and India have to work together, the connectivity is important. And that connectivity has to be first and foremost the physical connectivity. It has a sort of global and regional value chains, the point I mentioned, and also in terms of how education, healthcare, and wellness related issues are important. Next slide. the idea also then brings in social mobility, because until and unless connectivity is there, social mobility would not be there, and as a result, the exchanges that we are expecting would not be there. And that would automatically bring in understanding of culture. As we heard in the inaugural session, they are important. And when these things happen, automatically we set the stage for small and medium enterprises. The idea then comes in terms of the larger grand canvas that ASEAN Secretariat has many times talked about in terms of Asian century. And again, we heard the synergistic relationships that all these connectivities would bring in. We also need to see how, next one. The idea then would be in terms of what our Prime Minister has been emphasizing. And Prime Minister Modi's idea is not just India, ASEAN. He is trying to think in a very large context, and here I have quoted his statement from BRICS, where the idea was to bring Central Asia to South Asia and South Asia to Southeast Asia. How you have that grand sort of Asian century preparedness, where you find the movement from Kabul to Ho Chi Minh City easily feasible and possible. So what kind of work is required? So my own research institution, which I'm heading, is trying to understand the motor vehicle agreements, the other trade facilitating measures that all these institutions, countries need to have. So we very closely study different countries' perspectives, and if this statement has to come true, what kind of preparedness is required. And at the ASEAN Connectivity Summit itself, the idea came out that digital and physical infrastructure would be equally important. Then comes in the idea, as I said, when we talk about Central Asia, we cannot be unmindful of the fact that Central Asia provides a huge connectivity with Europe and other markets of the world. So Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran railway line that is being laid out is important. India's own effort in terms of connecting Afghanistan with Chabahar port is important. So what is required is a multimodal connectivity, physical infrastructure, and that's where it comes in. India-Kazakhstan partnership is equally important. Then comes in some of the efforts which our earlier Prime Minister made with the Golden Quadrangle project that India ended up with, and that Golden Quadrilateral project set the stage for connecting each village. And just day before yesterday, India presented the annual budget for itself, and the budget has a huge provision again for strengthening village infrastructure. And that would provide the idea of going forward. In inaugural, we did hear about the Sustainable Development Goals and big data. India has now made a major effort for launching what is called as BharatNet. And with BharatNet, there are around 6 lakh panchayats. Each panchayat would have optical fiber network that can host the big data about each panchayat and each village. Then are some of the projects which are important. India's effort for a port-led economic development. 41 ports are being developed, and 3 of them are in partnership with Myanmar and Bangladesh. There are reforms in the policy making. I see I'm running out of time, but the efforts in terms of how $120 billion mega project can be done here, India is trying to leverage the strength of the new development bank, which is the BRICS bank, but also Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, which China, led by many other countries, floated, and India is very much part of the exercise. Then comes in the regional connectivity scheme, which is trying to bring in, and this is our own national initiative. And this is again Prime Minister's idea that a common person should fly in air. How you reduce, and it was called UDAN. UDAN has an expansion that let the common person fly, but the idea was that you reduce the cost of operations to such an extent and multiply scale of economies, again, the first point that I made. So with scale of economies, you make companies profitable and they can reach out to regions which are not there. After 70 years of India's independence, 3 states of this part of the country where you are sitting have now come for the first time on the national map of railways, and railways have come up on this. Next. Air connectivity in northeastern region. We heard Chief Minister Assam, who told you about the flights from Bhutan, from Bangladesh, and also with Bangkok connectivity. So that's the idea, and the Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Vijay Thakur Singh, did request Honorable High Commissioners and Ambassadors sitting here to see if more flights can be connecting Guwahati so that regional movement becomes easier. Then is the idea of regional development, and this is what I want to fly across this room, because you would forget what I'm saying here, what projects, what ideas, and that's not my take also, because I don't want you to remember all those projects, but I would definitely like you to remember the 3 points that I made about the nature of globalization and why physical connectivity is important, and second set of issues are here as to what we bring in regional connectivity. Friends, you see the crisis which is coming out of Syria, which is coming out of Yemen. It is happening because local development is not happening. So if there is no local development, discontentment, social unrest, they multiply. So if you have to contain that, and if you have to bring in prosperity, the prosperity would come when we have adequate physical infrastructure ensuring growth for everyone, and growth has to be inclusive and exclusions are to be minimized, and that can be done when you bring in highway, inland waterways, railways and airways. This is all about physical infrastructure. Our Prime Minister called it HIRA, H-I-R-A, and HIRA in Hindi is something like diamond. So if physical connectivity has to achieve its diamond, then it has to have multimodal connectivity, which is highland, inland waterways, railways and airways. Next slide. And then the railway projects. I am out of, and there are several slides. Can we go on the last slide, please? So several projects are there. I had thought that I would have more time, but largely we can go on the last one further. So largely I'm trying to tell you that there is also a paradigm shift in India, and this is my third and last point. Social infrastructure is equally important when we talk about physical infrastructure. So when I say growth and economic development has to be inclusive, the poor people cannot take advantage of it, because physical infrastructure, there is a road outside, but the road has taken away their livelihood, it has marginalized them. So you require social infrastructure which is connecting business, small business, which is connecting opportunities for people, which is providing hospitals, which is providing education institutions, small financing facilities. So until and unless social infrastructure gels with physical infrastructure, economic growth is not possible. And economic growth to reduce number of exclusion is impossible. So we need to see that it goes in the desired direction that we require. I think there's one more slide, and then, yeah. So here I have tried to summarize my 3 points that I have made. I would not repeat. The first idea was, as I said, about the connectivity of northeastern region with ASEAN. Multimodal connectivity I emphasized, and then I emphasized on combining physical infrastructure with social infrastructure, largely to see that we can achieve the 3 points that I mentioned in the beginning: scale, technology, and the idea of networks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We understand that you have a flight to catch soon. Therefore, in view of that, may I request the chair to honor Mr. Chaturvedi with a small token of our appreciation for enabling us to deep dive into this aspect of physical connectivity at the summit. Thank you, sir. May I request His Excellency, the Vietnam Ambassador to India, to make his remarks, please.
Your Honorable Mr. B.N. Singh, Chief Minister, Your Honorable Mr. Chair of the panel, distinguished ambassadors, high commissioners, dear ASEAN friends. It gives me a great pleasure and privilege to be here for the first time, as I just assumed my ambassadorial post 3 months ago. This is a very beautiful area of India that I try to get a better understanding, because it is very special. It is special in many ways. The first way is that it's very far apart from the main India that we are normally familiar with physically. And secondly, it has a distinctive cultural and historical spiritual linkages. Let me thank, on behalf of my embassy, and as I'm the first ambassador of ASEAN to speak, thank the organizing committee, the various states of Northeast Asia, India Federation, and the Ministerial of External Affairs for organizing this important event. Looking back at the records of the youth, ASEAN youth and other ASEAN dialogue partners, we are very pleased to see that India is the 4th country, in addition to Japan, China, and Australia, to organize that kind of youth exchange. I welcome that initiative, though I believe, in my humble view, a little bit overdue. We wish it could be organized much earlier, but nevertheless, this is a very good initiative. And this gives the opportunity not only for ASEAN youth, but also for ASEAN head of missions of ASEAN embassies in New Delhi, to get a better understanding of India. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam is entrusted with a very high responsibility to talk about physical connectivity between India and ASEAN. I think this is a very challenging task, because Vietnam does not have any physical link with India except the sea link. We don't have the road link, we don't border with India, we even don't have air link. So how can an ambassador of Vietnam can speak about this topic? But I believe that the topic is even more challenging for the youth, because overall connectivity, we have human connectivity, we have economic connectivity, we have cultural connectivity, and we also have spiritual connectivity. All those much are easier for the youth. But in talking to your youth about physical connectivity, it's another story. Connectivity, especially physical connectivity, requires huge of investment. It requires policy-wise. It requires even internal stability. It requires harmonization and coordinations of internal policy of the country. So talking to this topic, let me share, Mr. Chairman, a number of anecdotes in my country. Perhaps this story may help you. In Vietnam, around 10 years ago, we have 2 very poor provinces. One province called Quảng Bình. It is in the center part of Vietnam. The road conditions to that province was very bad at that time. We did not have air link. And then the chairman of the People's Committee, like Chief Minister of that province, keep asking the government, you have to invest, you have to have air link, everything like that. But the government said that, but you don't have anything to offer. So if we invest, nobody use the air link. And finally, we found out in Quảng Bình a huge cave, and that was later discovered the biggest underground chamber, Sơn Dòng, and it was claimed by UNESCO as UNESCO site. and becomes one of the wonder of the world because all the adventurers would like to come there. It's lifetime journey because the chamber is 16 kilometers long under the earth. So once we have the recognitions by UNESCO, everything changed. The government decided to invest in airport. A number of private air companies opened the airlink. The Ministry of Transport invests a lot in improving the road conditions, and the whole story changed for the better. So a lot of people come, and that's changed. The second story is another province in the southern part of Vietnam. It was named Quang Ngai. It was also very poor. So the government of Vietnam keep thinking of how to make a change, because also that province we don't have any physical connectivity at all because no one wants to go there. And the government made a very important political decisions. The government decided to build an oil refinery, petrol refinery. And at that time, when the decision of the government came out, all the company, big companies, decided to withdraw from the project. They said that it's not viable economically because the government would like to help that province to get better off. The government does not pay attention to the profits of the company, things like that. But our government decided to go ahead with that. And a couple of years ago, here we have a huge refinery in Quang Ngai. And then everything followed. The airlink, the condition, hotel, and Quang Ngai now become one of the much better off province of Vietnam. Having said that, I want to come back to the main topic of the panel is physical conditions. You have heard in the special address by the Secretary East Singh that India conducted a number of projects with Myanmar, with Thailand. We have highway, 3 countries highway. We intend to have a railway. We also want to increase the airlink. Now let me go to one of these strings. Number 1, roadway. My colleague Ambassador Myanmar said that idea came around many years ago, but it takes years in order to, and they have to wait until 11 years in order to announce the project, and they don't know when the project will be going to finish. So it is a very difficult project. It requires a lot of investments. So now we have to look for funding from multilateral funding agencies, the ADB, World Bank, things like that. So this is the matter of multilateral facets. It's no longer the matter between ASEAN and India. Because both of us, ASEAN and India, would like to have that. But the question is, where do we get the money from? That's the first things. Now coming back to the railway. The railway is talking about physical connectivity. I wish that the Myanmar ambassador would have been in that position to speak, because Myanmar is the only ASEAN that neighbors India. So I was told by some friends that here the condition is very difficult in order to build a railway between India and other cities in ASEAN. So that option will be very difficult. Now about airlink. We found out that 16 airlines have flown between India and various cities of ASEAN. That is a good thing. Now, I tell you another story that I tried very hard in order to have an airlink between New Delhi and Vietnam, and I could not succeed. The reason is that, number 1, the air companies say that at the moment the capacity does not allow them to have, because if they run that airlink, they will go bankruptcy. That's number 1, because not enough people to travel. Number 2, another private company would like to come into the market, but at the moment they have a problem with the time slot, because all the good time have taken by other ASEAN colleagues. So perhaps we also heard about the project of $5 billion that the government of India is ready to put in order to boost the airlink between India and ASEAN. Perhaps it is the high time for all ASEAN allies, 16 existing one, and additional one who would like to into the market to get together and sit and talk together with other allies from India. So when you ask us about to open the airlink, I also ask you to India Airline, Indigo, EasyJet, Vistara, also to fly to respective ASEAN countries. And the question is that they also think of the profitability. So I think that what is important for us now is to get together, sit down, and discuss. Because otherwise, if you keep calling this way, another way, it's very difficult for us to come to a more optimistic scenario in the future. Physical connectivity, ladies and gentlemen, is not the topic that we are talking today. It has been raised repeatedly at different conferences here in India. It has also been addressed by the Prime Minister. It has also been addressed by various dignitaries, union ministers in New Delhi and on various occasions. So today, our main audience is the youth. So perhaps I want to borrow what has been said by the Minister of State, Afont, and Secretary Singh, that perhaps it's now for us, the panelists, to call on all the young youth, the future policymaker. Do you have any recommendation or any options in order to improve the physical connectivity between your respective country and India? I hope that after the 3 days here, you will be able to come up with some recommendation. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I want very much to share with the Honorable Chief Minister that in your beautiful state, you have a lot of rich cultural traditions. You talk about dancing, you talk about handloom, you talk about all the nice things. But at that moment, I think, since I have been working for UNESCO many years, I think that perhaps the best way for you now is to select one of the best products you have and ask your union government to submit to UNESCO in order to get the UNESCO advertising, branding. Once, for instance, the same way like Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is beautiful, but Taj Mahal is popular thanks to UNESCO branding. And the white field tomorrow we are going, we came to know that also thanks to UNESCO branding. So if your states would like to have any link, either road link, air link, or river link, then you have something to offer. And that offer, the things that you want to offer need to be internationally, or what normally we use, need to have universally accepted value. So once you have that, once you have the branding, when you have the marketing, everything will follow. So ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow will be the New Year of Vietnam. The presence, impressive presence of my delegation and me myself testify to the fact that how treasure Vietnam, how much Vietnam treasure the relationship with India. And we want to be here throughout all the New Year festival and holidays in order to contribute to a stronger tie physically, humanly, politically, and also spiritually between India and ASEAN, and especially between India and Vietnam. I thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency, Vietnam Ambassador to India, for your valuable speech. And now, I'd like to request Mr. P. Gopichand, Chief National Coach for the Indian Badminton Team, for his valuable motivational lecture.
You make your remarks, sir. We'll call him later. आप अपना remarks कर
Now I am told, sorry, that he will be joining you in the next session. So now I'll take 5-10 minutes to make my remarks. First of all, I would like to extend my heartiest thanks on behalf of the government of Assam and the people of Assam to Ministry of External Affairs and India Foundation for holding this most important youth conclave, ASEAN-Indian youth conclave here in Guwahati. We are extremely grateful to MEA and India Foundation, and I hope it will encourage whole Northeast India, because our youths who are present here today, so you are the future of each nation, future of the nation and future of the world. And now the whole, you see, concept of the economy is changed today, because the technology, which Mr. Sotrubedi has mentioned already, the technology has gone in such a height. Now the time of artificial intelligence has come, and startup and artificial intelligence. These two are more important as on today. And this is, you see, this is only will help for the development of our society as well as of our countries. Today, the topic of this session is physical connectivity. So far, physical connectivity is concerned, so I must say, so near and yet so far. So near and yet so far. Because we are sharing whole northeastern region. We are sharing 4,800 kilometers of the neighboring, you see, Southeast Asian boundaries. But even then, it is so near, next to the international boundary, there are Asian countries. And this part, our northeastern region. It is so near, but yet it is so far. Because before independence, our economy of this state, particularly Assam, that time Assam, whole northeastern region was 7 states was Assam. So before independence, actually this part was the richest part of our country, this part, northeastern part. Our per capita income was the highest in the country, in India. And our economic growth rate was very high before independence, because we have, Mr. Sotrubedi already mentioned, that whether developmental agenda is taking place, before connectivity or to connect, so developmental agenda should be taken. So before independence, this region, these 7 states, which was called Assam, so we are the richest state in the country. But after independence, we have gone down, as on today. Before independence, why we were rich? We were rich in a sense that we are the pioneer of hydrocarbon sector, the first refinery of Asia, and the second refinery, oil refinery of the world. It was established in 1901 in Assam, Digboi. Thus, first refinery of Asia and second refinery of the world. So that was established in Digboi in Assam in 1901. So that way we were pioneer in hydrocarbon sector. We have tea. So we are the largest producer of tea, this part, Assam and Northeast. We had oil, coal, tea, and woods. So that time, what happens? So we had got access to the seas. What our Excellency Vietnam ambassador to India said, that connectivity to Vietnam. So it is not there with India by road. So there is only one scope is there, cheap, because regarding flights, already he has explained, it is so costly that operators are not in a position to operate the flights. But only the shipper prosperity for transport is there only waterways. So after a long time, just after independence, so our river route, our sea route was cut in 1957, because of which our link, though historically ASEAN countries and Northeastern region is one family, historically, but we were cut in 1957 after independence. So since then, actually, we don't have our waterways to connect Southeast Asian countries and the world. Before independence, we were rich because that waterways, that connectivity was there. Because we had got the access to reach the Chittagong port of Bangladesh. And after getting Chittagong port, we got the sea and we reached all the countries of Southeast Asian as well as the world. That's why we were rich at that time. So, this time, for the first time, I extend my heartiest thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji. Under his bold and visionary leadership, under Actis Policy Affairs, because I am holding Actis Policy Affairs Department also, we have one department here in Assam, that is Actis Policy Affairs Department. So under the bold and visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, so now we got access to Chittagong port. And simultaneously, we have developed the water route also. We have two big rivers, one Barak River, one Brahmaputra River. So now Barak is dredged and Brahmaputra River also under dredging now. So this time, we will be getting this sea route. Then it will be easy to connect whether Vietnam or any Southeast Asian countries will be connected to Northeast India. So this is now going to happen. And Mr. Chaturvedi has mentioned about multi-level hub. So we are proposing multi-level hub here also in Assam, in Jogihopa, so that by rail, by air, by water, it will be easy to connect. It will be easy to connect ASEAN countries. So that way, our air link also, now there is a regional connectivity scheme, RCS. And you will be happy to know that regional connectivity scheme is confined within the countries. But our government, from Transport Department, from Actis Policy Affairs Department, we proposed, Government of India and Government of India agreed to our proposal, and we have paid 100 crores per year for viability gap funding to extend this UDAN, this under RCS policy, to connect Southeast Asian countries also. The same benefit our people will also get under this UDAN scheme. So that is proposed by Government of Assam from Transport and Actis Policy Affairs Department. And our Honorable Chief Minister is kind enough that he has sanctioned 100 crores to Civil Aviation Department to make the payment of viability gap funding. So under UDAN scheme, we are going to connect with Southeast Asian countries with Guwahati Airport. Now, when tender floated, only for 2 countries, already it is fixed. Tender is finalized from Guwahati Dhaka and Guwahati Bangkok. Already there is a flight from Thimphu, Bhutan, Guwahati, and Singapore. So now, within the month of March, we will be connected with Bangladesh and Thailand from Guwahati Airport. And Guwahati Airport also, you see, developed up to international airport. Now new terminal is coming up. it is under construction. So this is in airways, we are developing in a mission mode. So that is one. And second, this road also, our Honorable Chief Minister, Manipur, he has mentioned rightly, this trilateral highway. This trilateral highway is very important for us. This will connect our link with ASEAN. So what I am told by the Ministry of External Affairs, that road is completed, only the bridges are under construction. So these trilateral highways, so this is most important, which will connect ASEAN countries with India. And Manipur has a very vital role for this to play, because it will touch Manipur and Assam in Guwahati district. It will touch Assam, but main link will be from Manipur only, More. And apart from that, this Situe port in Myanmar, this is also about to complete, what I am told actually, about to complete. If this is completed, then by waterways, so Myanmar will be connected with Manipur. And once Manipur is connected, then whole Northeast India will be connected, as well India will be connected. So these two are very important, you see, project for Northeastern India to connect with Southeast Asia. So we are taking up this matter with MEA also and Government of India also. So railway, I will not speak details, because already this present government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, so we are connecting with, you see, with the Northeastern region, all states now, railway is connecting. So railway also developed in this way, so that our connectivity with 7 states is improved. Railway is taking up all the schemes for develop our states. Now, I will not take much of your time. Only thing, what is my feelings, what I feel, the Southeast Asian market is only the virgin market as on today in the globe, Southeast Asian market. Because 80 million people, we are living in this area. So this 80 million people's, this virgin market is a target of the global investors. That's why last year we organized here one international global summit, Advantage Assam. Advantage Assam, India's expressway to ASEAN, global investors meet. So now, all the investors are targeting only Southeast Asian market, 80 million people. Because you know, in European market, their domestic products are surplus now. In Indian market also, our domestic product, a day is coming, the way you see our industrial revolution is going on, or agricultural revolution is going on. The way we are moving, so a day will come, ultimately our domestic product also will be in a surplus position. Then this surplus production of European countries as well as on national domestic products, where they will sell. So ultimately, the market is in Southeast Asian market. So this is the most important and most you see, attractive market for the global investors. So now days are coming for Northeastern region states, all the states, that this will be the best destination for the global investors. And in a sense, in Assam, there are lots of investment. So we had MOU in the last Advantage Assam, we had MOU 79,000 crore MOU signed. But now, you'll be happy to know, including the petroleum sector, out of 79,000 79,000 crores of rupees. Now, about 42,000 crores already investment lending in the states. Because Numaligarh refinery alone, they are getting 22,000 to 22,500 crores. The national gas grid, they are bringing national pipeline, gas grid, connecting with national grid, so that it costs 6,000 crores. So like that, other investments also are coming here. And the pipeline from Paradip to Numaligarh refinery. Now Numaligarh refinery is doing business as on today with Myanmar and Bangladesh. They are exporting their products, petrol, diesel, wax. So they are now exporting to Bangladesh and Myanmar by road. Now Numaligarh refinery is planning to put one pipeline with Bangladesh, up to Bangladesh, from Assam to Bangladesh also. So that way you see these investments are coming, not only in Assam, in every state of Assam it will come. But Mr. Chaturvedi, what he has mentioned, that first of all, we must, you see, register ourselves as developed, and then only this connectivity will come, physical connectivity will come. But I'd like to inform that Northeastern region, our Honorable Chief Minister, Manipur, he has mentioned what products they are having surplus as on today. But for the first time after independence, you'll be very happy to know that in Northeastern region, there are lots of, you see, products, agricultural products which are surplus as on today. And for the first time after independence, the fresh fruits, vegetable, ginger, pineapple, and turmeric, the curcumin contents in turmeric of Northeastern region is high, very high. Curcumin contents in the curcumin. And curcumin is very important, you see, one chemical, one natural element in called curcumin is very important. And that's why, for the first time, our fresh fruits and vegetables from Northeastern region every day being exported from Guwahati airport to Dubai, London, and Hong Kong. Every day, every day. And as well Orange also. Every day, SpiceJet is taking the lead in this regard. So every day going, every day. So that way, Mr. Sotur, I'd like to inform Mr. Sotur, of course he left. So now, Northeastern region, we have registered ourselves as a surplus states in some sectors. Industrially, of course, we are not at par like Gujarat, Haryana, or Punjab, but we will be. That is our target. We will be. As Industry Minister, this is my assurance. We will be within very soon. Because out of 79,000 after first International Global Summit Advantage Assam, out of 79,000, 42,000 crore lending already. So this is not a joke. This is not a joke actually. So now we will be. So today it is our privilege to speak few words in these events. Again, I thank Ministry of External Affairs and India Foundation and His Excellency Vietnam Ambassador to India and Excellency Ambassadors also present here, and our most dynamic, one of the most dynamic Chief Minister, Honorable Chief Minister Mizoram, for being with us in this event, and thank to MEA and India Foundation for giving me this opportunity to share this seminar. With these few words, I conclude my speech. All the best, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
May we request the chair to please felicitate His Excellency, the Ambassador of Vietnam to India, Mr. Pham. Sir, if you can please give him a small memento. Volunteers. May I request our Director, General Dhruv Katot, sir, to also felicitate the chair, Mr. Patwari, with a memento on behalf of India Foundation, MEA, and Government of Assam. Thank you so much to our distinguished speakers, including Honorable Chief Minister of Manipur, who began this session on physical connectivity. We'll start our next very special session soon. We have the Chief Coach of the Indian National Badminton Team with us, Mr. Pullela Gopichand. May I request the volunteers to remove one chair so that we have just two chairs on the stage. Thank you, sir. Escort Mr. Gopichand on to the stage, please. I invite Katoj sir to introduce our speaker formally.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my proud privilege to introduce our speaker for the traditional motivation lecture. A man who is not just a sporting icon, but also one of the greatest sporting mentors India has produced, Shri Pullela Gopichand. When I grew up, and that was many decades ago, being a child of the 50s of the last century, the two games that had caught the public imagination in India was hockey and cricket. So it was no surprise then that as a young man, Pullela wanted to be a cricketer. Fortunately for India and for India badminton, he chose to play badminton. At that time, badminton was not a hugely popular sport, though we did have Prakash Padukone, who in 1980 made it to the #1 slot in world badminton. 16 years after that, it was the young Pullela Gopichand, aged 23, who became the Indian national badminton champion in 1996. And he held on to the title for the next 5 years. In 2001, he won the All England Badminton Championship, becoming the second Indian to do so after Prakash Padukone. Later, Mr. Gopichand devoted his time and energy to coaching young badminton players. He set up his own academy, and when funds were not forthcoming for the same, he mortgaged his house, and he used all his savings to set up his badminton academy. It was then that Mr. Prasad loaned him rupees 5 crores on a condition. And that condition was he would produce at least one Olympic medalist from India. And Mr. Gopichand bettered that. He has already produced 2, Ms. Saina Nehwal and Ms. P.V. Sindhu. Today, it is impossible to think of any international badminton event which does not have an Indian player competing for the top prize. And that credit too goes to Mr. Gopichand, an iconic player, a master coach, and mentor. Recipient of the Arjuna Award in 1999, the Dronacharya Award in 2009, and the Padma Bhushan in 2014, Mr. Padukone is also the Chief National Coach of the Indian Badminton Team. I have great pleasure in inviting him to address this August gathering. Shri Pullela Gopichand.
Thank you very much, sir, for the kind words, and a very good evening to all of you. To all the guests who have come from various countries, I hope you have a pleasant trip here and carry back pleasant memories from this beautiful state of Assam and from our warm country of India. Well, I'll just share a few of my thoughts and the learnings which I've had. Many of the things which have happened, in the CV there was a statement that I wanted to play cricket and I chose badminton. On the contrary, I actually wanted to play cricket. I went there, I didn't get admission in cricket. Cricket admissions were full. So my parents took me to the tennis ground because India at that point of time around the 80s, we only knew two sports. One was cricket and one was tennis. Tennis because we used to have Wimbledon and the French Open coming live on TV. So we went to join for tennis and parents decided against tennis because there were too many cars parked outside. So parents thought this seems like a rich man's sport, so let's not get into this, we'll go to badminton. And in Hyderabad, badminton was never a sport because we had not even produced a national champion, and Hyderabad is where I come from. We didn't even produce a national champion, so the place was very empty. So I went to my coach Hamid Hussain sir and I said, can I join? He asked, are you sure? And I said, no sir, I want to join, I want to play something, because at home I was playing and I broke window panes and my neighbors were very angry with me, so I didn't want to go back and play there. So I joined badminton. That is how things were. So many of the things which today might seem have been planned were actually destiny. God's grace, I would say. When I look at this whole journey, I can't but say that it's been supreme grace of God. It's been the sacrifices of my parents. And for me, if it was anything, it wasn't about winning the All England or winning a medal. It was about loving what I did. And truly, I loved the sport. I loved it the day I played it. It's not that I only loved badminton. I loved to play anything. Studies was difficult for me. I found it very, very boring. To make my life more complicated, my brother went to IIT. So it was even more complex because standards at home, and IIT is the India's premier engineering college. So everybody in the country wrote those exams, and back then about 1,000 people got entrance into it. So everybody aspired to be an engineer. My parents wanted me to be an engineer till they decided that, forget it, he doesn't have it. Let him play sport. And they gave me a year to play sport. And I joined economics in college. And I was given this 1 year to play sport. Luckily, that year I played well. I got my first chance to, of course, I won the Junior Nationals, got my first chance to represent the country, went to the Malaysian Open, and that was the beginning of my badminton career. So till then, I wasn't sure whether tomorrow I would play badminton or not. So for people I came back from the All England, and there was one big press statement in one of the big newspapers, which actually said that the day I held my racket, I dreamt that I would be a badminton player. That day, I knew one thing. One big lesson I learned is never trust the press. Because if there was any truth, it was much further from it. I played because I wanted to play initially. I loved to play the sport. Then later I played because my brother went to IIT and I needed to get a good job, decent job. And I better get some job in the end. So luckily, I got my job in Tata Steel. And that is when badminton career truly started. For me, I've been very fortunate that all my life I've got some good coaches to help me out. My parents, supremely supportive, and coaches who really loved and gave me their time, their blessings. And that is why where I am is what is there because of them. There are three things in my life, three statements which people have said, which I would like to share, which for me were very, very important. One was from a Chinese coach when I played in Germany. I was playing well, but in the year 1994, when I was the #1 player in the country, I was playing doubles with my partner, And I was supposed to play my singles final of the nationals in the evening. And I collided with my partner, and my knee twisted, and I tore the anterior cruciate ligament of my left knee. This was when I was about 20 years old. When I thought that I was supremely fit, strong, and nothing can go wrong in my life, this came as a big shock to me. Nobody before me had ever recovered from an ACL tear and played men's singles or women's singles again. So for me, this was like a very difficult time for me. Luckily, I didn't know much about it. Neither was Google there. Ignorance was bliss. The doctor told me that you will be all right, and I believed that I would be all right. I had the surgery, had about 30 odd stitches on my knee, had the bone grafted to give my knee a new life, and a year later I was still struggling. Luckily, after a year of rehab and work, and a lot of hard work, I got back into playing. I remember one small instance just to share how things were. Before me, one of my predecessors, Manoj, had an injury where of the similar nature, but he had to stop playing because he was injured and he had put on a lot of weight during the injury, and he never could recover back from the weight gain and the injury. So for 6 months, I ensured that I didn't eat a drop of oil or a gram of sugar. And by the end of the 6 months in rehab, I had actually lost weight but got stronger in the other parts. So I really worked hard during that time and believed what my doctor said. So it was very important that I did that, and I got back after a year. Again in the year 1996, I had another injury on the same knee. This time I was playing in Scotland at the World Championships, and I tore my cartilage in the same knee. And again I came back, fought for 6 months, got back. And again in the year 1998, I had another surgery on my left knee, this time a meniscus tear. And there were 3 surgeries which happened, and in 98 I was playing this league in Germany, and I lost my match. It was Netherlands Dutch Open which I lost, and came back and I was crying. I was actually sobbing, and the Chinese coach then called a friend of mine, Oliver, and he said, "Tell him, it's not how hard you fall or how many times you fall. It's how quickly you get up each time that matters." And truly, for me, that advice was so much important for me. That I keep remembering, because what he said was truly so correct, and I just believed him, and I truly loved those words. So the next time I had injuries or the next time I had a fall, I was like, come on, give me a challenge and I'm going to be back. There was fun in accepting challenges and saying, I will better you this time. Give me a bigger one and I'll challenge you again. So that thing came from the coach who told me this. It's not how many times or how hard you fall, but how quickly you get up each time is all that matters. For me, this advice was fantastic. The second advice for me, or the second understanding for me, was that all my life, when I started playing, I had 4 friends whom I was playing with. And I always would look at them and say, if they go to the stadium at 6 o'clock, I need to be there 15 minutes or half an hour before. If they run 10 rounds, I'll need to run 11 rounds. If they do 10 minutes of work, I'll need to do 15 minutes of work. If I work harder than them, I'll beat them. So all the time I was worried, or I was ensuring that I was competing against, and I believed that this was the mantra, that I need to be better than my competition, so I need to work harder than my competition. So I would cheat on them. I would say, put the alarm myself, I would get up and go and run and come back and sleep as though I didn't do, because I was competing with them. I didn't want them to train harder. So that's how I was. I would go out and find out what the Chinese are doing, what the Indonesians are doing, what the Malaysians are doing, what the Koreans are doing, and try and be better. I would ask how much time would they run a 400 meters in? How much time would they run 10 kilometers in? how much weights will they lift? And I would go back and try to train harder than them. But then somewhere after the injuries, something changed in me. It didn't matter to me what my competition did. All it mattered to me was what I did. And that for me was a huge revelation. Because when I didn't look at competition and I looked at myself, I enjoyed that journey far better. And I got far better results. Competition gave me nervousness and pressure. But wanting to compete against myself gave me happiness and excellence and a great team and people behind me. So for me, I think if you compete and look at competition, you might achieve national level. But if you really compete against yourself, you'll truly be world class. This is something which I really came as an understanding for me. The third thing which happened much later, I finished my career, and as an athlete, it's a very different life what you have. You're signing autographs, you're kind of posing for pictures. And at the end of the day, all of it has to go away one day. Every athlete, every individual in a way, has to let office off. And for an athlete to be on the high and then drop off, you kind of feel a lot of void inside. So I had a friend of mine called Pradeep, and what he told me, there were two things which he said. And both were very, very important for me, to be content, to be happy. So first thing was that Gopi, he said, if you're 6 feet tall, if you want a bed which is 6 feet, that's a necessity. If you want a bed which is 7 feet or 9 feet or 10 feet, that is luxury. So ask yourself what you want. And I said, yeah, maybe. So I defined all those things. I want a house with these bedrooms. I want a bed which is so big. I want a car which is like that. And he said, if you want this, then you'll be happy. But if you want a bed which is bigger than your neighbor's bed, then you will always be unhappy. So for me, this was very, very important, because to know what you want is very, very important. So when I finished my career, this is something which really stuck to me. Because in all my years and all our years, look at it, we have education. We do 20 years of education. And after 20 years of education, if you ask a kid who comes out of school, what do you want to be happy? What's the answer we'll get? Most of the times in India we get, I need a good job. And if you ask him, what is a good job? It's a job which gives me a good salary. What is a good salary? Not very sure. And when you are not sure of what you want, you will never be content. You will never be happy, because you don't know what you want. So I think it's very important for us to understand what we want. And to have a bottom is very, very important, because the pot is only going to be stable when it holds what is put inside. So when we finish off as young people, I think it's very important for us to go back and check what our beliefs are, what we want is it truly what we want, and define it as what is important. These were two things which Pradeep told me, which made great sense when I was finished off my playing career. The third instance happened, and I was coaching. And this is very strange, because every day, all my life I've done badminton, nothing else. I would play, and I would go to the stadium each and every day. Suddenly, both my knees had surgeries. In 2002, I had a right knee surgery. This time it was an overuse injury. Over the years of pressure on my left knee, my right knee had given way. So every day morning I would get up, check my right knee, check my left knee. And if one of them was hurting, then I would go to the stadium and coach. If both was all right, I would go and play. This is how my transformation into coaching had started. And then one day, I finished my coaching. One day, I was playing and coaching together. And I played a tournament in 2004. I won the tournament, beating a few of my kids who I was coaching. And that day was really miserable with mixed emotions in my heart, because the player in me wanted me to win and the coach in me wanted me to lose. And those moments of emotional turmoil just said, enough is enough, I don't want to play. Because every day I played, I felt I was doing injustice to the kids I was coaching. And so in 2004, abruptly, without even announcing my retirement, I stopped coaching, I stopped playing and went into coaching full time. The oldest of the group, I picked about 25 kids who were playing in Hyderabad. The oldest of the group was 16-year-old Kashyap. And the youngest of the group was PV Sindhu, who was about 9 years old. And in between that group, we had players like Saina Nehwal, who was about 13. We had Guru Sai Dutt, who was a Commonwealth bronze medalist. We had Sai Praneeth, who's a Singapore Open winner. And we had Tarun, Sikki, Sumit Reddy. All of them, about 10 of those 25 kids have played top 20 in the world. And that's something which I'm really happy and proud of. So things didn't come easy. The government helped me with a piece of land. There was a particular gentleman called N. Prasad who gave a good big check to start construction. And my dream was, because in my young days, I found things very difficult. We had only 3 badminton courts in the whole city, which were accessible to us. And we would go in the morning, we're just waiting for watchmen to come. We're waiting, go inside, we don't know if the electricity is there or not. We go there, we don't know if the courts are clean or not. We don't know if the coach will come or not. We don't know if the shuttles will come or not. We don't know if the players will come or not. So we really struggled all my life getting basic things. Because ground we wanted to go, we would see that there was a marriage being done. We had a lot of other functions which were being done. So sport for us was very volatile. So for me, I almost felt as though when I finished my career, that if I could become a badminton player with so many struggles, there are a lot of young kids who are far more talented than me. They can be better off than me. So all I wanted was to create an infrastructure which has all these facilities within their vicinity. So we dreamt of building badminton court, swimming pool, running track, recovery, gym, cafeteria, all rooms, all of them in one place. Had a big budget for it. Went around. I thought that if you wear a suit and a tie and a nice presentation, people will fund you. I went to a lot of places asking for money. People initially would say, Gopi, you're a nice man, blah, 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 talk to you. But then said, Gopi, but I don't think it's possible for us to give you money. I went to CSR Arms and CSR Arms said, health, sanitation, education, girl, child, poverty, these are the things, sport is not on our list. I went to the sponsorship guys and the sponsorship guys said, boss, badminton doesn't have the right, is not the right sport for sponsorship. So really struggled and got really fed up, because almost at a point of time, people would want to meet me, and suddenly people were avoiding me, because I would go into rooms and be, Abba, this guy has come, this guy will ask for money. So it's almost like people stopped taking my calls. I would go to parties and I would see like, oh, he's come back again, kind of moving, and this was very depressing. One night like that, I was in Mumbai, because the chairman of a company had said we will sponsor, and the CFO was evaluating my proposal. It was supposed to be a 1-day, 2-hour trip, which carried on from morning till evening for 3 full days. And at the end of the third day, the CFO calls me up and says, into his room and says, I have seen the proposal. I don't think it is worth it. I don't think badminton has the eyeballs to be a world sport. I don't think Indians have it in them to be champions. We can still discuss the proposal. And I had tears in my eyes. I just didn't know what to say. I said, thank you very much, sir. I walked out of the room, went to my house, and I called my parents and wife. And I said, we had this big house in Hyderabad, which we had built after winning the All England. I said, we might have to mortgage the house or sell the house. I thought we should sell the house to raise the money to build the academy. And my parents and wife agreed. And the next day, luckily we didn't sell it. We mortgaged it, got a 3 crore loan on it. 3 crores would be about $500,000. And we kind of completed the academy. This was in the year 2000. I'm only saying this because sometimes in your lives, you will have to trust and put all you have behind your belief. And that jump will be important. The best of the things happen after the darkest of the nights. You have to wait and hang on a little longer. A little longer. When you think that it's impossible, just hang on a little longer. And the magic will happen when you don't expect it. Maybe it's not when you want it, it'll happen. But when you deserve it, it'll happen. And the trick is to stay in that uncomfortable position long enough. And for me, the words of the alchemist in the book Alchemist, which actually says that if you want it badly, nature conspires to give it to you, is a statement which is so very true. You have to want it badly, but it will happen not when you want it. It will happen when you deserve it. And all you have is to give it all you have. And that for me is very, very important. So for me, my whole life and journey has been in this way, moving across. And today when I stand in front of you, and not with any other feeling, but with a true sense of saying it, I'll tell you, if I know something today and if I'm confident about something, it's the fact that I know very little and there's a lot more to be learned. Because my opinions on life, my thoughts about what I thought were perfectly right and this is the golden rule, have changed so many times. So be very open to the fact that you have to relearn. You might be wrong. The other person might be right. And that is something which is very, very important. Because for me, all my life, I thought that in a group of kids, to pick the best talented kid is what is most important. To train him day after day to make the champion is what is important. Till the time a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I was training a young kid of about 13 years, and I threw a shuttle. All she had to do was catch it and throw it back. I threw the shuttle to her. She missed it. And I was a little annoyed. I was like, come on, catch it properly. And I threw another shuttle, and she fumbled and caught it back. All she needed to do was catch and throw back. I was busy in the session. There were too many kids. So I walked out and I said, forget it, and I moved on. She came back to me to ask a simple question. Sir, teach me how to catch. I never knew that I had to answer a question like this ever in my life. Things which I thought and took for granted are not necessarily the same for everyone. There's a generation which is growing up for whom we as a nation, and this is the truth with most of Asia, I guess, we thought literacy is alphabetical and numerical in nature. And we never thought that running, throwing, catching, jumping were things which need to be taught, because there was nature to take care of these things. But today there's a whole generation which is growing up, which is educationally literate, but is physically not literate. So I think it's time for the next generation to look at physical literacy as an aspect which is very, very important. For me, it brings me back to Indian culture. We had Vivekananda, who said, it's better to play football than to meditate. The mind-body connect with sport is something which he was talking about. We had Aurobindo and the mother talk about physical culture and physical education. For me, when I look at young kids, I say, if you can't throw a ball as high as it can, or as far as it can go, or if you can't run as fast as you can, or jump as high as you can, if your physical boundaries are also not developed and explored, how can you even think of your mind being visionary and imaginary? I think it's very fundamental for us to grow physically first before we even attempt the mental side of it. So it's very important for us to start moving in that direction, which is very important. It's not necessary, and I go back to this again, it's not necessary that we have to compete. It is excellence where we compete against ourselves. Sport has taken a whole different dimension. The original ideals of the Olympic movement were amateurs come together to play sport, to exhibit their skills. Somewhere in the 80s, the movement took a turn of marketing, and what we have is countries saying that we are better than you, and if we win against you in sport. USA and USSR started it, and then countries started to look at it as positions of pride. We don't become a better country if we win a medal more or a little less. I think we need to start associating with that kind of thinking and start looking at each person trying to be the best of what he or she can be. If 100 meters, winning in 100 meters is making a country popular and strong, then forget about it. None of us should be even competing or running 100 meters. Because the last 70 years we've seen that only the Western African DNA has won that medal, whether they come from USA or Canada or Jamaica, that is the gene which gets it. And the Eastern Africans are the ones who are getting the medal for the long distance running. Does it mean that we shouldn't compete? No. On the contrary, all of us should. But it is competition against ourselves. So I think the very idea of talent should be looked at very differently. Instead of saying that which of these kids is talented, I think we need to start and look and say, everybody is talented. Let me find out where his talent is. The word talent identification should be changed to the word talent mapping. The onus is not on the kid or the child to be talented. It's on the teacher or the parent to find out where his talent is. I think that shift is very important, to respect the human being and to see him as inherently talented and us as inherent to find out where the talent is. I think that's the direction which we should go in. Because competing is not going to get us far. Connecting together, encouraging each other, and pushing each other together is what is the norm for the years to come. I remember youth, when I look at, when I see, when I talk, it just reflects me back as an athlete. I went to the 2000 Sydney Games. We were all standing together and we were waiting for the other teams to join in. Asia, we were like A, B, C, D. So in that list, USA was coming in the end. And the moment USA came up, they started chanting USA, USA. It's like a whole big chorus of USA, USA. It was going on. And all the Asians were standing there and just looking at it meekly. And then a couple of European countries started booing, shouting down the US thing. And the whole world got together and made that shout quieter. And the moment the next time during the ceremony, they say, you, and then everybody, boo. So it just went down. We have moved much further from that position till now. We went to the Rio Games. Back then, an instance which I would want to share is, we as an Indian contingent didn't win many medals then, neither did we this time around. But 90 to 95% of the team went there thinking of collecting memorabilia, of going there and thinking about shopping, clicking pictures and memories, so that they can tell their families back home and friends back home that we've been to the Olympics. And everybody was happy to participate and be there. But in the Rio Games in 2016, substantial shift in the way things have happened. 90% of them went there and were very unhappy if they didn't win a medal. And they wanted to win. So that is the shift which the youth brings. For whatever, yes, good, bad, I think the confidence which the youth has is phenomenal. And I think that needs to be preserved. It should not turn to arrogance, because what we have as a culture in Asia is supreme. I believe that we should preserve it. Look at what we have done, and I'll share a couple of instances with you. In India, when Alexander came in, there are books and references which talks about Indian dogs being like lions, the quality of lions. They would fight and attack and kill lions and tigers. That's the quality of Indian dogs breeds we had. And we've gone ahead with advertisements being taken over, and what we have is German Shepherds, Rottweilers, Saint Bernards coming into an Indian continent, and local breeds totally been vanished. We used to have 72 types of cows in our country. Today we have left that to 30. And the fact is that some of those cows, they say, had potentials. The ghee of those cows and the materials of the cow which can help to cure cancer have been lost because those breeds have been lost. So I don't know how much of flora and fauna we have lost. How many variants of seeds, of cereals, of legumes we've lost in our country. In the pursuit of something fast, something fancy, we've lost our basic inherent culture. And today science is saying maybe those were right, we are wrong today. I think first thing is we need to preserve at least what we have. The trees, the birds, the animals, the local culture, the dance forms, the art forms. We need to have them all together. So it's very important that each of us start working on that. And nature is important, our culture is important. Hold on to it. When I look at certain countries, I see this big problem which we have. We have a Western culture which is actually telling us some things which are diagonally opposite to what we've been doing. And as kids, I'm not sure whether I'm this side or this side. I go to school, to a Western school, and they teach me something. I come home and my parents tell me something else. Parents tell me, you listen, and the teachers at school tell me you question. There's a fundamental difference which is actually happening. So I think we need to start as elders in society. They need to start thinking. We need to kind of go back and ask what our roots are, respect them, and we may not get results for each of them all the time. We just need to follow them because they've been traditional methods which have been tested. I think that is very, very important. For us, our identity is our culture, and our pride comes from our culture, and for us it's very important to preserve those things. At the end of it, I would say I've achieved a lot in my life in terms of those things, but if there was a chance for me to redo it again, I would take it with both hands, even if I wouldn't get the same results. Just to point out that you are all at an age where you can make such a huge difference. I just wish you all the very best, and I hope that years from now, the work which you do will stand out, and it's been such a pleasure for me to come here, and I'm also happy, if time permits, to take any questions from any of you. Thank you very much.
Our guest speaker has actually got to catch a flight a little bit later in the evening, but we have time, say about 5 to 10 minutes for the interactive session. May I first have a show of hands as to who would like to ask a question? After that, I will, right? One there, one there, one there, and one here. 4. We take all 4. Right. First. The mic will come to you.
Sir, your speech was motivational, definitely. But I think this was the first motivational speech which was very meditative and calm. I want to ask whether spiritual learning has played any role in where you are today and where your students are with respect to their respective careers.
Well, for me, truly, when I was injured, when I look back, those years were very, very important for me, because I couldn't do much, and there were not so much of media in terms of social media. I got into reading, and I was into yoga and meditation quite a bit. So I really have benefited from it, and I believe there's a lot of strength and value in
Just one. Yeah, please identify yourself also.
Yes, I'm Rohit Jha, founder of Digiravel and country head for Soul UMI. So you talked about the culture retention and about all those, the dance, the sports and everything that we have, you know. So my question is that, what is the solution? I mean, we are attracted toward the West, you know. So when we see the metro cities and all those cities, they are attracted toward the Western cultures like that. And the time is coming that, you know, we are forgetting our own culture. I mean, in the modern education, there's no value for, you know, the Vedic cultures and Vedic educations, the dance you are talking about. So how to retain this? You have any idea? I mean, what could be the solutions? I mean, yes, the governments are working on that, but what could be the solutions? How can society change on this? This is the question that I would like to, and I would also like to tell you, you know, today morning when I was coming here, so the culture you were talking about, yes, I forgot the culture. I met my friend, and he used to, use a tilak. You know, it's also a part of the culture. So I said, what is a tilak? And he told me all the history of the tilak and the choti. And yes, so what do you think, what could be the solutions, to retain our own culture, to retain our own education, to retain our own, sports?
Well, I'll share an insight on the sports side of it. Think of what India has as a sport. Wrestling, Malkham, Kho-Kho, Kabaddi, hockey. These are the sports which Indians, archery, fencing, these were the sports which Indians have played in the past from historical times. Look at the common connect. No equipment or hands as equipment and sticks as equipment. That's all it was. Sport was primarily local. We had no equipment, sticks as equipment, small place, more people can play. This is what sport was. It was local. Fast forward this to today, and what do we have? Golf courses, running, you have cricket grounds, you have rugby fields, soccer fields, you have equestrians or swimming pools of 50 meters. It needs a lot more resources. So we've picked up sports which were primarily in Europe, because when you go to Europe, these are things which are naturally there. You pick them up, bring them here, and then you associate your pride at winning in those games. So I think one, to understand the nature of things is very important. And two, I think people should start talking about it. If you all start thinking that it is cool to wear a tilak, it is cool to go to a presentation in a kurta and paisama, that starts to make the difference. Because Western education cannot define those things for us. An MBA cannot define those things for us. We need to start questioning those fundamentals. And I think that is very, very important.
Right. No, please sit down. Yeah, you're the third question? Right. Now, we have just exactly 5 minutes because he has to catch his flight. We'll take both the questions together. Please make it short. Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you, because when your career was grooming, you rejected to add for all the soft drinks because it's not good for health, sir. Very, very thank you and humble salute to you for that. Second question, sir. Sir, I would like to ask you, what is the difference between China's policy and India's policy? We have almost same number of population, same spirit we are carrying, but still China is growing in a sports sector and India is not. What is your opinion about it, sir?
And we'll take the last question from there.
Okay, namaskar. My name is Luqman from Brunei Darussalam. It's a very tiny country in Southeast Asia. On behalf of our friend, our fellow badminton athlete in Brunei, what advice you have for them, because we are very young and we never reach that level like Malaysia have done. Congratulations to them, Indonesia have done. Please, we will record this and show them back in Brunei. Please give them the best advice that you can give. Thank you very much.
Well, I think for young aspiring athletes, I think it's very important that you love what you do. Love and passion are very, very important. And beyond that, my sincere only advice is that once you love what you do and when you have a passion for excellence, I think the rest of the things will follow. Hard work, discipline, dedication won't seem difficult when you love what you do. And that for me would be very, very important. As a nation, I think for all of us, to every kid to be physically literate would be very, very important. And if any of this, and this was a statement from J.R.D. Tata, who was a great industrialist from our nation. He said, a country doesn't become great by only alienating poverty. It becomes great by giving opportunities to the talented few to rise to the top at the world level. I think that is very important. To have physical literacy for all would be very important, but for the few who are talented in them, to give them an opportunity to compete against the best in the world and to become the best in the world is something which is important. And for all of them, for happiness and health, I think it's very important for us to start looking at sport as sport for life. I think it's very, very important. So for me, sport for life, physical literacy for all is something which is very, very important. And as our Prime Minister has said, for each nation, for each race, community to prosper, pride is very important. And each victory at any level in the world gives that pride for the nation, which helps the nation to move forward. So I think a comprehensive look at sport is very, very important. And whether the champions are coming or not is almost secondary. The moment you play sport, you're a champion. Because the kind of lessons sport gives you, I think cannot be given by any other field for a young kid. I think that is the reason why we should play sport. Medals are in addition to that. But even if you play sport and participate in sport, it is good enough. We had in 1952, Jawaharlal Nehru had said, participation is more important than winning. And this was at the Asian Games in 1952. And it's a true statement which is very true, which is in the original sense, the way the Olympics was conceived. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Right, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the session. The only comments I would like to make is, in my time, I've heard many motivational speeches. I have given some too. But I think what I have heard today has really made an impact on me, and I'm absolutely certain it would have made an impact on you, because what he spoke today really exemplifies what and how a champion is made. Please join me in giving him a very warm applause. May I request Mr. Naina Singh, the Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University, to kindly felicitate our motivational speaker, Pullela Gopichand.
Sonu Trivedi for Myanmar, Priyank Pandey for Singapore, Rajat Sethi for Philippines, Rami Desai for Cambodia, Soumya Agrawal for Brunei, Sudarshan Ramabhadran for Malaysia, Swadesh Singh for Indonesia, Vandana Mishra for Thailand, and Apurv Mishra for Laopedia. We would also be dividing you into mixed groups of ASEAN delegates and Indian delegates, and these groups will be mailed to you by tonight. Now it is time that we invite you to join us for the networking dinner outside. Thank you.